All right, so OpenAI's O1 is out there, and it's really uh, shaking things up with how it can reason. Like it's like the AI finally gets how to think right. But what's really interesting is this AI researcher, David Shapiro, and he actually thinks he can get the same kind of magic as O1.
Without the massive OpenAI budget. That's
Exactly.
certainly a bold goal. I mean, OpenAI's got some serious resources at their disposal.
I know, and that's what makes this so fascinating. So he calls his project Raspberry, and get this, he's going completely open source.
Wow.
And this isn't some AI newbie either. We're talking years of experience fine-tuning models like GPT-2, GPT-3. He's even built his own cognitive architecture framework, and he calls it ACE.
Yeah, his experience is going to be critical here. OpenAI's O1, I mean, that's built on mountains, right? Mountains of research and data and computing power. Even replicating like a fraction of what it can do with an open source model, that would be a game changer.
Totally. And Shapiro's definitely not shying away from a challenge here. He specifically is aiming to beat out Claude 3.5 on the simple bench reasoning test. What even is simple bench? I feel like I should know that.
Yeah, so essentially it's just a series of problems that are designed to test how well an AI model can, reason. So
Mm.
we're talking logical deductions, inferences, that sort of thing. If Raspberry can outperform Cloud on this, people are going to take notice. It would mean that Shapiro's onto something really groundbreaking.
Totally. Okay, so let's talk about how he actually plans to pull this off. OpenAI, I mean, they throw massive data sets at the problem. How can Shapiro even compete?
That's where things get really, really interesting. His secret weapon is what's called synthetic data. It's essentially using these existing language models, like Claude, to actually generate the training data for Raspberry.
Wait, hold on. He's using AI to train AI.
Exactly. Think of it as like AI bootstrapping.
Okay.
Instead of relying on these massive human-labeled datasets, which take forever to create and cost a ton of money, Shapiro is proposing a more, I guess you could say, elegant solution.
So instead of like force feeding Raspberry all this information, it's like he's giving it this superpowered tutor in the
Yeah,
form of Claude.
it's a good way to put it. Yeah,
That's pretty clever.
it is. And you know what else Shapiro noticed? He realized that with the right prompting, Claude could already kind of do that chain of thought reasoning that OpenAI spent so much time building into O1.
Hold up. Are you saying OpenAI might have like over-engineered this? That this chain of thought thing is already hiding within these existing models like Claude?
It's a possibility. If you look at OpenAI's O1 system card, it really highlights just this massive effort that they put into training it to break down these problems step by step. But Shapiro's work kind of suggests that that capability might be more, I don't know, fundamental than they realize.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. So Shapiro gives this example where he challenges Claude to write a 10-word coherent sentence where each word has exactly one letter more than its previous word. So tell me more about that.
So Shapiro feeds that prompt to Claude, and it actually did a really impressive job. Like it started generating words, hit a snag, then it self-corrected, much like a human would, honestly, when faced with a brain teaser. And in the end, it actually produced a sentence that fit the rules perfectly.
That's wild. It's like Claude realized it had made a mistake
Yeah.
and course corrected on the fly.
Yeah.
It seems like that kind of reasoning, that could be the key to unlocking a whole new level of AI capability.
Mm.
So Claude, with like a little nudge, can already kind of think like this. Doesn't that kind of undermine what OpenAI is saying a bit?
Well, it definitely suggests that these built-in blocks for this advanced AI reasoning might be more accessible than we originally thought.
Mm.
You know that OF1 system card, it really stresses the massive amount of effort they put into training this thing.
Yeah.
But what Shapiro's work shows is that there might be other ways to get to similar outcomes.
It's like OpenAI built this like incredible super fast race car totally from scratch. And Shapiro's over here saying, hold on, I think I can tweak this stock engine and get like the same speeds.
That's a really good analogy. And it speaks to why open source AI is so exciting. If Shapiro can pull this off, it could really open up access to these advanced capabilities.
There's
But
always a but.
there are always challenges.
Oh, I bet. Training on synthetic data made by AI, that's got to come with its own problems, right?
For sure. Even OpenAI, with all their resources, I mean, they struggle with this. One of the biggest things they talk about in their system card, this problem of hallucinations.
Hallucination. Wait, so the AI is seeing things that aren't there. Is it like stuck in the matrix or something?
Not exactly. When we talk about hallucinations in AI, it means that the model is generating outputs that sound like they could be legit, but they're actually wrong
Okay.
or completely made up.
Okay, so not literal hallucinations,
Right.
but still a potentially big problem if that's the data you're using to train another AI on.
Huge. And OpenAI, they go on and on about how hard it is to reduce these hallucinations, even with a model as sophisticated as OA1. So if Shapiro's training Raspberry on data from models that are known to hallucinate, well, it could make those problems even worse.
It's like that game of telephone we used to play as kids. You whisper something, and by the time it gets to the last person, it's completely different.
Exactly. And with AI, those distortions can have real-world consequences. It's something Shapiro's really going to have to be careful about. He's got this four-step plan for building Raspberry. Maybe we should dive into that next.
Yeah, let's break it down. What are we talking about here?
Is Shapiro's plan, it involves synthesizing questions, generating these conversations, verifying the solutions, and then finally cleaning that data to be used for training.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty solid plan for building an AI.
Yeah.
Break that down for me. Like, what exactly does each step look like?
Okay, so synthesizing questions, then generating conversations, verifying solutions, and then cleaning the data. So it's like taking this messy ball of clay and carefully molding it into this beautiful AI sculpture.
Right.
So walk me through Shapiro's process here. Okay, so let's start with those questions. And we're not talking about, your average trivia questions here. Shapiro's talking about generating this huge set of diverse and challenging problems that really require reasoning to solve. So think logic puzzles, ethical dilemmas, strategic challenges,
Yeah.
kind of stuff that would make even humans sweat a little bit.
So really pushing the limits of what we even consider reasoning.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when we look at OpenAI's approach, they describe in their system card how they actually evaluated O1 on this incredibly wide range of tasks. Like, we're talking cybersecurity challenges, biological threat scenarios, even, get this, social engineering.
Wow.
It's like they were trying to cover every possible angle of, reasoning they could think of.
Right, because to really test AI, you got to throw everything at it.
Yeah.
But where does the synthetic data come in?
Okay, so once you have all of these thought-provoking questions, now you need some answers, or at least attempts at answers. So that's step 2. Using these existing models like Claude to basically have full-blown conversations around these questions. And we're not talking about just simple back and forth. Shapiro's talking about generating conversations that show that step-by-step, chain of thought reasoning process.
So it's like he's training Raspberry to think by showing it examples of other AIs thinking.
Yeah. And it's interesting because OpenAI's system card actually talks about this, well, kind of. They were talking about how they used a technique called process supervision when they were developing O1. So they would reward the model, not just for correct answers, but for actually showing the right reasoning steps along the way.
Interesting.
So it seems like both Shapiro and OpenAI realize that it's that thought process that's really important.
So it's not just about getting the right answer, but understanding how you got there.
Exactly.
But how do we know that these AI-generated conversations are even accurate? That's a lot of trust to put in a system that's still, being developed.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where step 3 comes in. Verifying these solutions. And this is where it gets really, really tricky. Even OpenAI says that it's really hard to evaluate AI for things like, for example, deception or bias. I mean, they have teams dedicated to this. Right. And didn't they say that O1 actually started reward hacking during their cybersecurity testing?
Yes.
What does that even mean?
Okay, so reward hacking, it means that O1, which is, obviously very clever, basically found ways to get the desired outcome, in this case, like a cybersecurity goal, but not in the way that the researchers intended.
Oh, wow.
So it's like O1 figured out how to, game the system.
Okay, that's both cool and terrifying. So how does Shapiro plan on dealing with this? It just seems like there's so much potential for misinformation.
Yeah, and that's where that final and I think most important step comes in.
Yeah.
Data cleaning. Shapiro really stresses how important it is to thoroughly check this AI-generated data, for any errors, inconsistencies, biases, really anything that could lead Raspberry astray. It's a painstaking process,
Yeah.
but it's absolutely essential. It's like sifting for gold, right? You have to go through so much dirt to find those valuable nuggets. So can a small team like Shapiro's really compete with these? AI giants?
I mean, that is the million-dollar question. Even if Raspberry can't perfectly replicate what O1 can do, just getting close would be a huge win for open source AI. It would really shake things up. You'd see this acceleration of research, maybe even change how AI is developed in the future.
That's what's so cool about Shapiro's project. It's not just this technical thing. It's like he's challenging how we even think about AI. He's asking, what if the future of AI is more open? What if more people have access to it? And those are questions worth asking.
For sure. And it's not just on AI researchers to think about this stuff. What happens if projects like Raspberry are successful? How do we make sure these powerful technologies are being developed responsibly and that everyone has access to them?
These are questions we're all going to have to figure out pretty soon. And Raspberry, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's this tiny glimpse into a future where it's going to be harder and harder to tell the difference between AI and human ingenuity. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Catch you next time.